So first thing I put on here is I listed out perfect squares up through 12 again. I'm not going to say them out loud because I don't want to drone on and put you to sleep, but can you guys please fill in your perfect squares? You do need to know them up through 12, and it's just a good idea to practice writing them again. And if you know them further than that, that's awesome too. Without a calculator, my requirement is through 12. Now, we're not going to do a ton with imaginary numbers, but some of your answers will come out imaginary. So I do want to review it real quick. Do you remember in Algebra 2 last year where you did a whole bunch with imaginary numbers? Or I don't know if you did, but you remember you multiplied them together and did all kinds of crazy stuff? We're not going to do that. The only reason you need to even know what it is some of the answers will come out imaginary. So that's why I'm just going to review it real quick. We're not going to do a ton with it, but like we're just going to review it real quick. So an imaginary number is I. Please make sure you dot your I's very sincerely, because otherwise they're going to look like ones. And that is defined to be square root of -1. It's the way that we get a negative under a square root. So it's how you can square root a negative. So we'll just do a couple little examples here. Square root of 100 would be 10, but because it's -100, it's going to be 10i. So like, for example, what would be square root of -9? 3i. Good. You just do square root of 9, which is 3, and then put an I on there. What would be square root of -25? 5i. Okay, are you with me there? These ones we're going to need to split apart. So the first thing you're going to do is take out the negative. That's the part that's going to be I. So I always joke you're going to take out an I. It sounds like really wrong, but take out an I. That negative, that's the part that will be I. And then we need to split up 8. So you need two numbers that multiply together to equal 8. One of them has to be a perfect square. So what is that going to be? Yeah, you're right. 4 times 2. Yep, you got it. Some people want like both numbers to work. That can't happen. If they both worked, you wouldn't even need to split it. Only one of them is going to work. So the whole point of choosing 4 is you can square root that. What is your square root of 4? Good. So this will be 2. This will be I. So we get 2i. And then this square root of 2 is just left over. Again, one of them is going to work and one of them is going to just be left over. It's like, well, we did the best we could. If you're like, hey, I didn't quite get that, I'm going to do another one. First, take out the negative. That's the part that will be I. And then you want to split up 48, which will be 16 times 3. And so what does the square root of 16 part reduce to? All right, good. That'll be 4. This will be I. So it's 4i square root of 3. And then let's just try one more. Again, take out the negative. That's the part that will be imaginary. And how will we break up 45? Like I need two numbers that'll multiply to be 45. Yeah, 9 times 5. Good. And so what will that reduce to as the final answer? Good. 3i. The square root of 9 is 3. So 3i and then square root of 5 is kind of just there. Again, your answers are going to look weird. You have to just accept that. Okay. That was your review of imaginary numbers. We all good? That's all we need to do with them. We're not going to do any of the other stuff like the operations like you did last year. That's all you need them for. Okay. So what we're going to do today is solving quadratics, which means getting an answer, like x equals an answer. And there's a whole bunch of different methods. So I'm going to show you all of them. And then you can kind of like, well, usually I'm going to give you directions solved by this method, but you can kind of pick what works best for you. First, we're going to do solve by graphing. This is where you graph the thing. It's going to be a parabola, and you just look at where it equals 0. All right, so ignoring the equals 0 for just a second, how did this parabola get transformed? Reflect over x, so it's upside down, good. What else? Up 8, good, and then what else? Good, stretch, good, yeah, so it's like taller. So we're gonna go up 8, put a point, and it's going to be upside down. Let's get a few more points. What do you want to plug in? Good, let's do 1. 1 squared. 1 times -2 would be -2 plus 8 is 6. So you get 1, 6. And then because you have that axis of symmetry at 0, I didn't dot it in because it's on the axis. We'll be able to see it very well, but centered at 0. So we get that buy 1, get 1 point. And then let's try 2. 2 squared is 4 times -2 will be -8 plus 8 is 0. So you get 2, 0, and then -2, 0, and that is your graph. And so when you solve by graphing, literally all you do is look at the graph and go, oh, the answers are this and this. All right, so because it should be x equals an answer. And what we're looking for are these points right here, the zeros. So what are they? What are our answers? Yeah, good. X equals -2, x equals +2. That's literally it. You just draw a graph and go, oh, there's the answer. All right, solve by factoring. I know factoring is a little scary because last year was weird. I'm going to do these slower than I would normally. And again, you have factoring practice on Delta Math if you want extra practice. The first thing you want to do is evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. Get everybody over to one side so it all equals 0. It has to equal 0 first. So we're going to add over the 4x squared. So when you add it over, it'll be positive. And you want to be clever about the order you put stuff in. It should be the x squared and then the x and then the 2. And then what we're going to do is split it apart. Everyone's been bringing up to me this like X process that they did. If you want to do that, go for it. I usually just do guess and check. Like you try something. If it doesn't work, you try something else. I feel like that's what builds your number sense. I don't care. However you get a right answer is totally fine with me. Whatever method you use. I'm not here to say one method's better than another, right? Here's how I'm going to walk you through it though. What numbers multiply together to be 4? 2 and 2 or 4 and 1. All right, I'm just going to write that off to the side. We can do 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. All right, and then you also want to split the last number, which is 2. So what multiplies together to equal 2? Yeah, 2 and 1. So I'm just going to write that down. Miss Cole, I want to do that in my head. That's fine. You don't have to write it. But we just need to pick something and go with it and see what works. I'm going to do the 1 and the 4. So we're going to do 1x and 4x. If it doesn't work, guess what? The world won't stop spinning. We will just try something else. That's it. Trying and having it not work and then trying something else is what builds your number sense. That's how you like get smarter. All right, so now the 1 and the 2. Where do you want to put the 1? In the first parenthesis or the second parenthesis? First one. All right, we'll put the 1 here and the 2 here. Let's see if it works. I don't know. Let's just see. What do the outsides give us? Drawing my rainbows here. 2x and the inside's 1 times 4, 4x. Does 2 plus 4 give you 9 in the middle? No. All right. Yeah, not at all. Let's erase them and try it the other way. Now let's see what we get. What do the outsides give us now? Yeah, good. 1x, just x. And then the insides, 8x. Does 1 and 8 equal 9? There we go. Don't worry about the symbols until the very end. We'll put the pluses and minuses in. Just think about that last, right? Now, if you want it to be a -9, they're both going to need to be negative. -1 and -8 makes -9. But hey, Ms. Cole, there's a plus right here. That's because when you multiply -2 times -1, you get +2. Heads not, okay, good, heads nodding. I normally would not do factoring that slowly and deliberately, but again, I know it was weird for you last year, so I'm trying to get us all together. Now, I have people do that beautifully and then stop, and it absolutely breaks my heart that I have to take off points for this, but if you stop there, you didn't get an answer. You have to actually set these equal to 0 and get your answers. So if you set this one equal to 0, what would x be? 2. Good. So our first answer is 2. And if you set this equal to 0, you would add over the 1 and then what? Divide by 4. Good. So 1/4. So just don't forget to actually answer the question, because I get people that'll do that and it's lovely and beautiful, and then I have to take off points because you didn't answer. All right, so this one, draw your 2 sets of parentheses. We're going to split it. This one's called a difference of squares. Does that ring any bells? Difference of squares. Okay, good, cool. Notice they're both perfect squares. So how would we split 16 so that we have the same number? Yeah, good. 4x, 4x. And then how would you split 49 so you have the same number? Good. And it's plus and minus because notice you have no x's in the middle. If you want to think of it like this, that helps some people. The middle term is completely missing. So if one's positive and one's negative, they cancel out. That's how you end up with 0. I also like writing that because it looks like ox, and I just think that's fun. All right, now don't forget to get your answers. You need to set these equal to 0. If you set this one equal to 0, you would subtract the 7, so it's going to be negative, and then divide by 4. So negative 7/4. And then what would the other one be? Yeah, positive 7/4. The same thing, just one's positive and one's negative. All right, that's your review of factoring. If you want more factoring review, swing by after school. I can give you more problems. Also, you have more on Delta Math, okay? 4 and 5, this says solve using the square root property. That just means you need to put a plus and a minus when you do a square root. All right, so we're just going to try to get x by itself. It just means solve the equation. So how would we move over the 5? Yeah, divide by 5. So 30 divided by 5 gives you 6. And then to get rid of the squared, we're going to square root and just remember to put the plus and the minus. So you would get x plus 2 equals positive and negative square root of 6. That doesn't split, so don't. Like if there's no work, then just don't do anything. And then what's the last step? Subtract 2. So it'll be a negative 2 and just put it out front because you don't want it to look like it's underneath the square root. All right, let's try that again. You just want to get x by itself. So you would subtract over the 64. All right, then what? Like this is just solving an equation. Like now what? Now what are we going to move over? Good, divide by 2. That'll give us x squared equals negative 32. All right, and then last step. How do we get rid of the squared? Square root. All right, so you're going to have to put plus and minus, and this is going to have to be broken up, like these examples that we did right up here. Okay, this is where I comes in. We're going to take out the negative. That's the part that will be I. And how would you split up 32? Okay, that's not wrong, but there's a bigger perfect square that works. 16. So like 4 is not incorrect. To be really clear about that. But 16 is larger, so you want to go with the larger one. So 16 times 2. And then so that'll reduce to plus and minus what? Good, 4i square root of 2. All right, and we'll do these two and then we'll do a break. This is like what we did on the warm-up. We learned completing the square last class. You're just going to finish it up and actually get an answer. Now, the first thing we need to do is rearrange this one. I'm going to need to subtract over the 2x. So we'll have x squared minus 2x. Leave a little gap, and then you have to subtract over the 10. So it'll be minus 10. Those two things just switch places. Do you guys get that algebra is just moving things? Like that's all algebra is. It's like, I'm going to put this over here and that over there. Like you're just moving stuff. All right, now we're going to complete the square. You need to take this number, divide by 2, and square. So what are we going to add to both sides? 1. That's kind of tricky. People forget about 1, but it's because 1 squared is 1. And so the whole point is you can write it as blank squared. What goes in the blank? X minus 1. Perfect. Equals -9. So that's what we did last class. Now we're just going to finish it up. There's only 2 more steps. Square root. Don't forget to put the plus and minus. And what is your square root of -9? Perfect. 3i. And then add over the 1. So it'll be 1 plus and minus 3i. And again, just be aware you got 2 answers. You got 1 plus 3i and you got 1 minus 3i. So 2 answers. This one's got a 3 out front. You're all going to be okay. I believe in you. We're going to have to factor out the 3. So if you factor out 3, what are you going to be left with? X squared. Good. Plus 4x. Leave a gap there. Equals 7. And then here's where we complete the square. So you want to divide by 2 and square. Good. 4. 4 is a little bit of a weird number because 2 plus 2 is 4 and 2 times 2 is 4. But here's where you have to be careful. You don't add 4 to the other side. It's not a 4. It's a 3 times 4. So it's really what? 12. Good. So you're going to add 12 to the other side. I'm sorry. I wrote too big. Plus 12 on the other side. So the whole point of complete the square is you can write it as blank squared. And what will go in the blank? Yeah, x plus 2 equals 7 plus 12, 19. Again, that's what we did last class. Now we're just going to take it a little bit further and solve it. So you would divide by 3. 19 divided by 3 without a calculator is just 19 over 3. Again, you're going to start to love non-calculator. In fact, it gets to the point where when I'm like, hey guys, you're going to need a calculator for this problem, everyone groans because they know it's going to be messy and you're going to have to like do work. If there's no calculator, you just don't do anything. Leave it alone. All right, then what? What's the next step? All right, square root. Remember to put plus and minus. So it's plus and minus square root of 19/3. That's a great answer. Don't discriminate. And then last step. Minus 2. All right, so it'll be -2 plus and minus square root of 19/3. Okay, so we've looked at a lot of methods. Solve by graphing. I don't really expect anyone to choose to do that unless I tell you you have to. Solve by factoring, which is nice if it factors. Not every trinomial is going to factor. These two are really the same. After you complete the square, then you use the square root property. This is just without the completing the square step. All right, the last method that we're going to look at is the quadratic formula. So here it is. You have to let me know if this looks familiar. So list out what A, B, and C are. A is 2, B is 4, C is 3. Ms. Cole, I don't want to. Tough, do it anyway. I will tell you right now that the people that don't stay organized don't get through this. This formula is about organization more than anything else, all right? Because it's large and there's a lot of things to plug in. You're going to give every number a hug when you plug it in, right? So negative B, that would be -4 plus and minus. Draw yourself a huge square root. 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3 all over 2 times 2. And then we have the fun job of simplifying that down. So x equals -4 plus and minus gigantic square root, although it won't be as big this time because we're going to sort through this. 4 squared. All right, that'll be 16 minus, let's see, 4 times 2 times 3. Good, 24. And then that's all over 2 times 2, which is 4. We're going to come over here. X equals -4 plus and minus square root 16 minus 24. That will be negative what? Good, -8. Thank you. And then we're going to have to split that up. I'm just going to write it off to the side. First, you would take out the negative. And then how is 8 going to split up? Good, 4 times 2. I just kind of did that as like a little side problem. So this will be -4 plus and minus. How will that simplify down? 2i, good, square root of 2, all over 4. And then what you're going to do is divide everything by 4, except what's in the square root. You can't touch what's under that little house. That stays there. So -4 divided by 4 is -1 plus and minus 2/4 would reduce to 1/2. And then I square root of 2. So this would be useful if your middle coefficient is odd. Otherwise, you would do complete the square because it's a whole lot easier. But it's there and we looked at it, yeah? Okay. Lastly, we're going to look at our applications. An application means that you take what you learned and you apply it to a real life situation. In other words, word problems. I know, insert groan right here. Okay. It's not that bad though. A parabola goes up and comes down. So they're usually problems about a ball going into the air and then falling back down. Like this one's about a cannonball and this is like someone throws a ball into the air. To find the vertex, here's your little formula. -b/2a. Draw a box around that or put some stars next to it. That's a little formula for you to find the center. It comes from your quadratic formula. You see this here? For what it's worth. Anyway, -b/2a. So this first one, number 9, a cannonball follows that parabola negative, so it's going to be upside down. It goes up and comes back down due to gravity. Has anyone taken physics? Are you in physics? Yeah, like, do you do that? Stuff goes up, comes back down? You will. All right. X is time in seconds. Y is height in feet. So you have seconds and you have feet. You just make sure you put units on your answers. What is the maximum height reached by the cannonball and when does that happen? What we're looking for is this vertex point. That's what we're looking for, X comma Y. That's what we want to find, where that vertex point is. Here's the little formula I gave you, -b/2a. All right, negative, what is b in this situation? 32, good, -32 over 2a, 2 times a. What is a in this situation? -2. You just have to find those and plug them in. Let's see what we get. -32 over -4. Negatives cancel, which is good because we're talking about time. You can't have negative time. So what does that come out to? 8. That's the X value. If you want the Y value, you have to take 8 and plug it back in right here. Now, some of these numbers get kind of big. In this situation, I'd probably give you a calculator, but let's see how well we can get through this. We're going to plug 8 in for X and see what happens. Whatever we get, that's the Y value of that point. So let's see, 8 squared. 64 doubled would be good, -128 plus 32 times 8 would be 256, and then plus 14. -128 plus 256 would just be 128 plus 14. Again, this is a situation I'd probably give you a calculator, but I figured we'd talk our way through it. So what is that going to be? I'm going to need more. Okay, so 142. So 8 comma 142. Remember, you write maximums and minimums backwards. And this is wise because whenever you're doing a real life problem, this is how you would say it. The maximum height is 142 what? Feet at time 8 seconds. because that's how we would say it. What is the maximum height? 142 feet at time 8 seconds. If somebody asked you what's the maximum height of something, you wouldn't go 8 seconds, comma 142 feet. Like that. That's not how we talk, right? So that's why it's written that way. When does the cannonball hit the ground? Hey, boys and girls, if it's on the ground, how many feet off the ground is it? 0. So you're going to take this thing and set it equal to 0. And then we're going to complete the square. So the first thing you're going to do is subtract over that 14, move that over. This is about, everyone always wants to know how harder the problem's going to get. This is about as hard as you can make it, right? We're going to divide out the -2 from what's left. This part's gone. So if you divide out -2 from these, you would have x squared and then what? Good, minus 16x. 32 divided by -2 gives you -16. All right, I'm going to use another color. Again, I know it doesn't show up real great on here, but we'll do our best. Divide by 2 and square. Good, 64. Now you're not going to add 64 to the other side. It's not a 64. It's a -2 times 64. So that would be -128. The whole point is you can write it as something squared. That's why we did that. So what will go in the blank there? Good, x minus 8. I made this x instead of t. I should have done t for time, but that sort of bothers people. But you ever hear like in t minus 8 seconds? That's why, because that's how you write the parabola in Vertex form. Anyway, and then this would be negative. Oh, that's -142, isn't that? All right, and then divide by the -2. Negatives are going to cancel. 142 divided by 2 would be 71. All right, we're nearly there. What's next? All right, what do you have to put in front when you do that? Plus or minus. And then your last step is add 8. Now, I'm just going to write 8 plus square root of 71. I don't want the minus because x is time and we don't have negative seconds. So it's 8 plus square root of 71 seconds. Again, that's about as hard as I can make it. All right, and then last one, what height is the cannonball launched from? That's actually the easiest question of all. What height it's launched from is where it started. And so all you have to do is plug in 0. So look back at the equation right here. If you plug in 0, what do you get? Yeah, 14, right? Like just that leftover number. So 14 feet. I should have put that one first. Here, we're going to try it again. A ball gets thrown in the air and comes back down. Oh, I did make this one t. T is time in seconds. H of t is height in feet. So we have seconds and we have feet. We'll do letter C first. What height is the ball thrown from? 6 feet. So I guess somebody that's like 6 feet tall threw it. All right, letter A, what is the maximum height reached and when does this occur? It goes up and comes back down. We're looking for that vertex point. We're going to use this little formula, -b over 2a. That will make you find the center. So -b. All right, what is b in this equation? 4, good. Over 2a, and a is -2. So that's -4 over -4. So 1. So this point is 1 comma something. You just have to take 1 and plug it back in. So this one's actually easier. 1 squared is 1 times -2 would be -2. Plus 4 times 1 is 4, and then plus 6. So what is that going to give us for the h of t value for that one? The 8. So just remember, you wouldn't say 1 comma 8. You would say the maximum height is 8 feet at time 1 second. And then when does the ball hit the ground? Well, if it's on the ground, you're going to set the whole thing equal to 0. And what I want you to notice about this, like look at each of the numbers. You have 2, you have 4, and you have 6. What do those all divide by? 2. What I'm going to do is go through and divide everything by a -2, because that will reduce the numbers and make them smaller. It will simplify the problem. So if you notice that happens, it's nice because 0 divided by anything is what? 0. So like it's kind of convenient. All right, so this will be t squared minus 2t minus 3 equals 0. You can complete the square, or I'll tell you, this one factors. So factoring is actually easier in my opinion, but you can complete the square. You'll get the same answer either way. So let's practice factoring. This would be t times t for t squared. And then how would you split 3? Good. And you're doing the symbols as well. No, that's fine. That's cool. If you can do it together, that's awesome. I try to do it separate because it's too much for me to think about. But yes, you're right. +1 minus 3. And then don't forget to get the answers. If you set this equal to 0, what will you get? -1, good, and 3. I'm going to get rid of this. Why? Can't have negative time, and so your answer is t equals 3 seconds.